meeting, we'll have a chance for some brief visitor comments, so make sure you please sign in if you're wanting to do that. So let's all stand for a moment of silent prayer, please. Please join with me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. Kaiser.
Here.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Ms. Perkins. Here. Mr. Walter.
Here.
So council, you have in front of you, or at least you should have gotten the old-fashioned way this week, the minutes from our prior meeting. So in a moment, take a look at those, and if you have any additions or questions, we can address those now.
I like that. I think we should get that service every time.
I did feel important when I saw a big gym floor.
I know. Mine almost fell down my door. I was glad to see it.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Mr. Kaiser.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Perkins.
Yes.
Mr. Walter.
Yes.
All right, thank you. You also should have received current expenses that are written last week or so. If you have any questions on those?
$50,000, what was that?
And that is the pool interest loan
That's
payment.
what I thought, okay.
Would be a larger one coming in December.
Okay.
Paul's not making it tonight?
You should be a little bit late.
There he is.
You hammered it. Motion to approve current expenses.
Second.
Mr. Kaiser.
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Ms. Perkins.
Yes.
Mr. Walter.
Yes.
All right, we'll get to the reports. The mayor's not here, obviously, but I will go ahead and give mine for President Pro Tem. Nothing major. I just want to remind council that we have set July 8th as our work session. And if you could be thinking about maybe one or two big priorities you would like to see council address this coming year, and we can kind of hash those out and kind of prioritize some of those coming up on that meeting in July 8th. I know we all come here with certain ideas, and we want to make sure that we all get a chance to share those and get the dialogue going on those. So that's coming up on July 8th. You also notice that tonight, when I started the meeting, it wasn't a misspeak when I said silent prayer. There has been, as many of you know, the Supreme Court has affirmed the rights of village councils and bodies like this to begin with prayer. Doesn't mean that's something we will choose to do, but it might be something we would like to begin to discuss. So that's something I'm adding to the agenda on the July 8th meeting. And it's not a small item to ask the favor of Almighty God. So if that's something that we would like to do as a body, we can begin discussing that on July 8th. So bring your arguments for and against that. Other than that, I have nothing. Renee?
The only thing I have is I emailed you guys the Ohio Insurance Services stuff. I didn't know if you had any questions. I hadn't heard back, so I brought it here again today. You're going to decide something by July 1, if you want to go with the consortium or not. So just let me know if you have any questions.
And so that would cost us
That would
money,
save us,
save us money in the long haul.
I believe, it saves us about $500 a month.
Okay. So we need to move on that by July?
Yeah, by July 1. But locks us in for 3 years with this consortium.
Do you want to have that discussion now, or do you want to?
I remember correctly, we left it, we had a question, I think Bob asked, what happens with the 6 months that we already have insurance throughout the rest of this year?
Colleen explained that.
Oh, did she?
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sorry. What was the explanation?
She said, well, it's with the same agent, so I understand that there was an issue, but she said that there would not be, because there's 3 months, I remember her discussing 3 months previous. Paul, do you remember her exact words? I know she acted like it was not a huge deal, so I never followed up with it because that was her, kind of her
Okay.
area expertise. But I can,
I think it'd
I'll
be
get it in
good,
an email
I think it'd
response
be
from
good to
them.
get something from the insurance agency rather than a council
6 month
member.
remaining contract period.
Yeah.
Anything else? Police chief.
We completed our annual firearms training, so everybody qualified for that. The mayor stopped out for an observation of the firearms as well. Thank her for that. Also, officers from the department attended and participated in the Union County Law Enforcement Memorial Ceremony, which was held at the courthouse grounds at Union County. Also, the police departments began the 2014 Click It or Ticket mobilization. That runs from May 19th to June 1st. I don't know if any of you have followed the police department's Facebook page or not, but as you may have seen or have heard some of the PowerPoints I sent out as well, as Sergeant McKee is Mr. Click It or Ticket. So he is dressed in a tuxedo with, want to thank the ladies from Main Street Treasures for creating the outfit for him. And it's an important key, not just enforcement. Police are typically just known for enforcement efforts. We like to also encourage education as well, because education reaches a broader band of audience than typically enforcement just impacts the violator. So this also received some national attention through the National Highway Safety Traffic Administration. So I want to thank Sergeant McKee for his continued efforts with this campaign to keep our roadways safe. Officer Greenbaum will be presenting the Citizens Response to Active Shooter training, which will be on June the 11th at 7 p.m. This is going to be at the Pleasant Valley Fire Department in the community room. This information as well is going to be available on our Facebook and website. This training is free. It's open to the public. It's going to last for approximately 1 hour, and there'll be a question and answer session after it's completed. And then last but not least, and I don't know how this would work, Paul would probably have to give his opinion on this with the mayor not being here tonight. We had discussions with the officer that I am making the recommendation for a full-time status. He has completed all the pre-employment background, the physical information. I had emailed the mayor and spoke with her about the bringing this up tonight, and she was okay with it, with the proceeding with it. So I was asking for Officer David Drudy to be appointed to the full-time status to be effective May 29th. Again, he's completed all of his necessary pre-employment steps. He started as a volunteer with the agency back in August of 2013, went to part-time in December, and he's certainly eager, and he's trained and ready to start. So I don't know where this can go from here without the mayor being present.
Well, I guess my only question would be is, I mean, she's formally made the recommendation, or she's
okay.
accepted your recommendation.
Yes.
I don't know if she's conferred with anybody else about it, but assuming that the recommendation has been made, it's full council, it's fine for council to consider.
So you just need a motion. All right, I'll make the motion that we hire David
Drudy.
Drudy as a full-time officer.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Walter.
Yes.
And that is an effective date of May 29th.
Are we okay, since we don't have the revised appropriations cleared yet? Is that an issue?
Well, I mean, he has appropriations right now. At the end of the year, it could be an issue if it's not approved. I mean,
But it's not
right
an
now,
issue,
no.
so that's not a barrier.
Right.
Great, okay, just wanted to make sure.
Anything else?
That's it. If anybody has any questions?
So we'll probably swear him in next time, or?
He's already sworn in.
Okay,
It's
so-
just a matter of him moving into that position like when Aaron was part-time.
Okay. Thank Kevin?
I only have a few things this evening. Our new public utilities clerk, Regina Temple, started today. So that's nice to have that position filled again. Our pool opened Saturday and was very popular. And let everybody know that I'm going to be meeting with BNN over the next week to go over a plan for our applications for OPWC grants. Those are due in July. That's all I have unless there's any further questions.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Mullins? All right, solicitor.
Just from the last meeting, I know that there are a couple of questions that were asked of me regarding zoning requirements as far as property maintenance and also building maintenance. And just to bring it up, to address it, that we do have zoning on the books relative to the residential development plan under section 118304. And it basically, the kind of catch-all, I think the specific question was asked me last time, people have gutters that are not taken care of, that are falling apart, or windows that are broken or missing, things of that nature. There is a requirement that no property owner shall fail to keep the exterior of all residential and commercial premises in good condition and well maintained, and that they're required within a reasonable time after notice, meaning typically would be the zoning enforcement officer, to remove or remedy all unsightly, dirty, or unsafe conditions. Then we get into general upkeep of maintenance of the property to include lawns, to avoid any generalized term pestilence, animals, things of that nature, to discourage any problems or any fire hazards or hazardous conditions in the property. So kind of generalized, it's more of a blight ordinance. So we do have things on the books for windows and the structural upkeep of the buildings as well as the premises themselves. And that would be essentially, there's two ways it can happen. I mean, obviously we're a small village, so a zoning inspector can't be tasked with, even though we're a small village, can't be tasked with going door to door to making sure everybody's okay. So upon a complaint of a citizen that, hey, there's something wrong over here, he would go and inspect it. If he finds there's a problem, he writes up a notice of a warning, and they have a reasonable period of time to resolve it. Or the alternative, if he just comes across something that he sees doesn't comply, then he can do it on his own. But either way, then they have a reasonable period of time to resolve it. And if they don't, we do have a penalty section. The corrections can be made by the village if necessary, with the cost to be taxed to the property owner. And that would go through the auditor's office. And there's also a minor misdemeanor penalty as well. So that's kind of the gist of getting up to speed on that.
So we don't currently have someone who can do that for us?
No, I mean, right now with John out and Kevin, I mean, Kevin can do it. We would tax him because he's wearing a number of hats. But yeah, if a call or a complaint comes in, I guess Kevin would have to handle it.
Well, I'd like to lodge one. We've had that house on Maple basically without an exterior for years. Right before you get to the VFW on that side of the street. I mean, it hasn't had an exterior. It's just insulation. It's been that way for almost as long as I can remember. And then the house on the corner there, you've probably seen that. The grass, they're obviously gone, I would imagine.
They've been served. Yeah, I figured as much.
Let's not forget the one on Gate Street.
That one has been served.
Okay. Yeah, is that the one that was by the Dutchman? No, that's not.
It's
Okay,
one
so-
right behind my house,
Okay. Yeah.
Next to Daryl's, right?
next door to Daryl.
Okay. So,
So it seems like there is a plan, we just,
There's a plan
we'll
with
see
Solway.
Kevin before then, or until we get someone in that position. And it's just a matter of doing it.
What is going on with the position? Is it just in limbo or?
We are waiting to hear back from Mr. Jordan
No.
to see what his next step is.
Is there a time frame there or?
June 1st, he's
They
out
do
till,
have June
at
1st.
least until we hear otherwise.
So that's it from my end.
Well, I did have a question for you. I know you sent it to us once, maybe a couple months ago, but can you send me a copy of the lease that the PCABA has with, I just had a couple issues. I assume that we don't take care of that park property during baseball season. They do the mowing and those kinds of things. Apparently, they had to have hit a fence on Barker. It's been all cockeyed like that for a while, so I'm assuming they're responsible for fixing it. I'm just afraid they're just gonna let it go and not.
PCABA maintains the ball diamonds throughout the year.
Right, so they mow.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, so what kind of responsibility do they have? In what shape can they leave it? Because of course there's like holes in the outfield on Kaiser. Is it their job to reseed that? Because it's obviously their kids digging holes in there as they're standing out there. Their mowers hit the fence on Barker. I'm assuming those are their responsibilities to take care of. I don't think they're going to do it unless we tell them, is my concern.
Yeah, I mean, as I recall, again, it's been a while since I looked at it, but I remember under the terms of the lease, that any waste or damage to the property, they're responsible for during the lease.
Yeah, okay. And then I had another question. When we had the down power lines, Barker was fine. And they kept everybody, PCABA said, no one go on Barker. And I didn't know if that was something that the village, because obviously they don't have the authority to tell anyone to stay out of the park. That's just not within their, realm of control. I didn't know if there was a discussion with you or with the village as to don't let anyone on the fields, but it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way that they felt entitled to tell everyone to stay out of the park.
We didn't tell them to stay out of the park. We did advise that it would be in the best interest of everyone to stay off of Kaiser, and possibly Pony because of the other.
But Barker, there was nothing wrong with it. They were telling us we couldn't go on.
We never told them that they had to stay off of the park.
Right. I mean, as far as the organization and teams playing out there, to the extent that it impacts their teams or their organization players, I mean, I'm a coach as well, they may have, and I don't remember the Barker because I'm coaching all the kids on Kaiser, I got the 10U and the 12U now, but they may have felt out of an abundance of caution to keep kids off of 8U, off of Barker. Yeah, now, they're not, I don't believe that they're telling everybody you can't be out there, period.
Now, if they were night games, they probably couldn't get those because the power was.
No, we were just talking about practice. And it wasn't the sense that it was a safety issue. My concern was just the way that it, and we can talk about that later, but.
Yeah, and I'll have to look at I do want to say that I believe the terms of the lease agreement they have exclusive control over the ball diamonds from date to date.
Right.
So they can, by terms of the lease, we've given them control over the diamonds during the time frame. So if there are people out there that aren't authorized, they can say, you're not allowed to be out here, we've got the lease.
Okay, that's fine. My bigger concern was though how they leave the fields, like with the holes on Kaiser and the fence.
Yeah. And they've been pretty responsive, I think. Matter of fact, they helped out even with the deductible that they.
They've agreed to pay half of our deductible from the storm damage.
Cool. So.
All right, thanks.
All right. I'll still get that to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Question. You said we lost some trees during the storm?
We lost one large tree.
Just one large, okay.
Yes.
What happened to the wood? Can we sell it to recover
We
costs?
saved it, and it's alongside the horse barn, and typically when that happens, we cut it into 8-foot sections, stack it up back there, and the steam threshers use it for their show.
Okay.
Can't build a salt barn out of it.
Maybe after they know it, I don't know.
Anything with UPCO tonight?
We stood out in the rain and the hail a couple weeks ago and handed out some information on the area during the Heritage Days. Also at our meeting last week or week before last, we voted to act as a clearinghouse for any donations that people want to make for the Clock Tower Fund. So if they want to use it as a tax deductible donation, they can give it to the village through UPCO.
Check should be written up though.
Yes.
And designated for the clock towers.
So basically, if anybody comes to the village wanting to donate to the clock tower, point them toward UPCO.
Thank you.
Sure.
Save the clock tower, just like Back to the Future. Start running out the flag.
Yeah, I'm not getting out there with a cable and that.
Planning and zoning. That one's here.
Actually, Colleen did, in her email, offer a couple comments.
You don't have any discussion on those items, or you just want to wait till she's here next time?
I don't think there was anything really pressing. Yeah.
Yeah, we had, as I recall from that meeting, we had essentially 3 items that came up. One was an item that's been on the agenda for a long time, but been kind of taken back burner with a lot of other things with the development and all that going on. But one of them was a wind energy proposed ordinance, a proposed ordinance for amending the sign code. And then finally, an amendment to the ordinance. I think we've discussed it here, or Leslie, you might have been at P&Z one of the nights, when the issue of lower level development in the B3 district, residential property on the B3, on the first floor for BZ in B3 district. And we've made that amendment, and that's all passed. So those are the 3 items that passed out of P&Z that will, I imagine, when Colleen comes, will present it for council.
BZA?
No meetings.
CIC?
CIC?
CIC.
There's actually a meeting tonight, so I was unable to attend.
Park meeting, there's not been one since the last time we met.
Hey, Sean, I do have a question about
Yeah.
parks. I was at a game just the other night, and on Barker, there's 2 utility poles laying on the ground by the third base side. Some little girl got her leg caught, like, down in between the poles. We literally had to call like 20 guys off the benches and cleared everything to get her, to free her. So it looks like they've been there for quite some time. They're half buried. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
she could have been hurt much worse than she wasn't injured, but she could have. I don't know if we want to move those or look at something
You think Mr.
different,
Baum,
but
is it possible to move them, or just?
we will check
care
it out.
I had one question. People staying in the campgrounds, are they required to display their permit?
Yes.
Because I went through the parks, what was it, yesterday, and I didn't see one permit. And there was about less than 10 campers there at that point.
We continue to have permitting issues at the campground. Saturday I was there, we had 8 registrations and 18 campers. So enforcement continues to be a problem.
Okay. I wanted to see what the pool looked like, so it looked really packed. So, and I went ahead and cruised the park, and that's when I made the loop around the campground, so. That's it.
Anything else with the park? Personnel and finance?
Nothing really new from a finance standpoint. The question has come up, and I don't know if we want to discuss it tonight or not, whether we really need a full-time zoning inspector or just a part-time zoning inspector. And that would be important to know as we're getting ready to make a decision. There may be some candidates that, if it was really part-time strictly zoning, that might be very qualified that have not applied. So I guess the option would be then to take the public works supervision and create a position in lieu of. Because Kevin can't continue to do it all, but I just wanted to bring up, that train of thought. A gentleman from Darby Union Township has been a zoning inspector for 20 years and would be interested in serving part-time if the village went that direction.
Any other thoughts on that issue, or?
I think you've talked to him, Jim Butler.
I have.
And, I don't want to get into personnel decisions. I just wanted to bring that up, topic of discussion, because we're wrestling with how to make some decisions right now.
Right. And I do have some suggestions and recommendations once we determine the status moving forward with that position, and how I would like to proceed.
Jim, anything with fire?
No, that's fine.
Anything with design review board or anything else on that? We talked about that.
Do you remember, Ben Crosby called me today, and they changed the front door of the bank. And he was under the impression that it was a requirement that the mahogany door that was there was supposed to stay. Do you know?
I look at the front door as being the door that faces Main Street, and I was there the other day, and it was still the original door.
They did it today.
Oh, haven't seen it.
Yeah, they replaced it today.
They were asked to refurbish it or replace it, so I don't remember the details, but.
Okay. He was
But it
pretty
did-
adamant that the mahogany door was supposed to stay there and they were supposed to refinish it.
The minutes will show,
Okay.
and those are on file.
Not an extra. Yep.
Anything else with that? All right, move into old business. On your agenda, second reading of Resolution 1014, the amended budget.
I make a motion to approve the second reading of 1014.
I do have a question. When we were talking about the equipment last time and then how it folds into the budget, are we approving also in that Kevin, we're okaying Kevin to spend that money in that fashion? Or are we just okaying the budget?
It's an appropriation for those specific activities.
Okay, so once that's okay, he can just go ahead and order what he needs, is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. I guess my question is, we talked about new. I mean, is there any reason we have not looked into buying used, leasing?
I've looked into all of that.
Okay,
Used, there's a couple of units available that I know of currently. Most of them are larger than what we need. And most of them are going to have 100,000 plus miles on them. Leasing, it was $1,500 per month. And that was for, I don't have the details of what exact model that would be to lease.
okay. Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions along those lines?
Well, I did some research today, and I talked to Rob Cook at Sunbelt Rentals, and they have a chipper that they're willing to sell us. It has 1,281 hours on it. It's a 12-inch. It's from 2008. They're asking $11,350 for it. It's a Vermeer BC 1000 XL. I looked up trying to find price on new. The closest I could find was about $39,000 if they were brand new.
It was how much money?
$11,350. And then I got on the website and printed out the brochure. And then I talked to JD Power and Tool, the manager out there, Dave Valkia. He says they no longer carry bucket trucks because they have too many problems with them. He strongly suggests instead of using a bucket truck, they suggest a 60-foot rough terrain articulating boom. You pull it behind a truck. He said they are safer than a bucket truck because they are self-leveling. Bucket trucks now have new state regulations that they must be inspected by a certified inspector every 150 hours. He said the rental, to bring it to us for $200 for the delivery and pickup, it would be $300 a day or $900 a week. And he said since we're Plain City, if we want to give them a contract of some sort, he'd give us a 10% discount. So depending on how many times a year we use a bucket truck, as opposed to 70,000 versus $300 a day. And they also have a wood chipper that we could pick up there for free, or they would deliver and pick up for $100. It's 12-inch, $260 a day. You could possibly get us a new one for $40,000.
Kevin, when the traffic lights are out, we have to use a bucket truck, don't we?
Yes, sir.
Can the state come in and do that job?
I've
I
not
wouldn't wanna
approached,
wait on them to do that.
I've not approached them.
But this is something they could use for that, Jim.
One of my concerns with that is they drop it off, we have to go to multiple locations, so, are they going to wait for us to do the work and then move it for us? Is it,
He said it pulls behind a truck. We don't have a dump truck or a pickup truck that has a hitch on it, like that pulls the chipper, be the same difference. I guess my question is, I still just can't wrap my head around why we have to buy new. That's just it.
I talked to the city workers the other day, and two of them told me, he said, Jim, it's really nice to be able to go in and go to work, pick your equipment up and go get your job done instead of working a half a day on your equipment and trying to get it to work.
Okay, I understand it needs replaced. That's not my question. My question
But-
is, why do we have to replace it with new? I mean,
did we buy a new police car?
that's different.
How is that different?
Oh, yes, that is an emergency response vehicle.
So is when I have somebody 60 feet in the air and their life is hanging literally up in the air. There is no difference.
Yeah, but I'm not asking you to use something unsafe.
I think we're talking apples and oranges for the
I think
record here.
those were my exact words last meeting, apples and oranges. I think the police department also has a cruiser that has a transmission out. Are you gonna go buy a new police cruiser because your transmission is out, or are you gonna just replace your
I
transmission?
don't wanna go into that.
Okay, but that's an example. Let's pretend you have a cruiser with a transmission out. Are you gonna buy a new transmission, or are you gonna buy a new cruiser? That's my
Depending on the
question.
mileage of the car and the life expectancy.
Yes. And if we can get by, I want you to have your cake and eat it too.
Ma'am, I have done all of the research that you've looked at, and that is what I get paid to do, is
I
to
understand.
research all of this.
And I
This
get
is my
paid
rec-
to ask the questions.
Absolutely. This is I've done all of that homework,
Okay.
and this is my recommendation for the equipment that would best suit this community.
And correct me if I'm wrong,
Go ahead.
part of our plan is that we, as a governmental entity, we get to buy this stuff at a significant discount and then sell it back. So then we ultimately have this cycling plan where it doesn't cost us near as much as what you're seeing up front. That's my understanding. Is that accurate?
We also have warranty with new. I'm not sure, if something is used and available, my question is why? Somebody has made a decision to take it out of service and not use it for some reason. I don't know what that is, and I don't think you can answer that question.
Same difference with a used car. People buy used cars all the time, same difference.
And we've
There
got,
could be the same reason.
right, and we've got city employees that I think deserve to be supported by council and not
It
second
has nothing to
guess.
do,
Hold on. Bob, you want to finish?
I'm finished.
Justin,
it has nothing to do with safety. And my words got turned around at the last meeting, and I didn't appreciate that. It has
Quite
nothing to
honestly,
do
I'm
with safety.
surprised you're doing the village administrator's job.
It is my job to question the village
And
administrator.
you've had 2 months, this came up in February, and now you're
And again, you
just,
showed me that paper at last meeting. Colleen did not see that paper, neither did Jim. It was all new to the three of us. I don't know, Sean, did you see that paper that Nick had in the
Actually-
accounts meeting?
actually, you got that on May 1st, and you asked me questions about it on the 11th of May.
It was
2
about
emails.
this,
Exactly.
exactly. The paper that Nick gave me at last meeting, I had not seen.
You got it in the email on May 1st.
No, you said February. I have not got it. I do
Oh,
not
I
delete my
included it
emails.
again
I've
in
gone.
May.
Okay, I'm not gonna argue this.
You don't know how to read an Excel file was your problem. and you asked me the question twice.
Excuse me, I'm a graphic designer. I know how to
Well-
work a computer
Then why did you ask the same question twice?
Any more discussion?
because I'm allowed to. I want answers.
Well, I've got a
People in this
question.
community want to know why.
I've got a question for Bob.
I'm not finished.
Okay, go ahead.
People are asking why we're buying all this new equipment and we still are charging for parades. We tacked on $10 to everybody's water bill. They don't understand.
You know,
And again, I don't understand, it has nothing to do with safety. It's why do we have to buy new when how many times a year do we use a bucket truck? Once a week? Once a month?
A few times a week.
Really?
Jim, did you have something?
If-
Leslie, you just called him a liar. What are you doing? You said, really?
Don't talk to me like that. How
No.
dare you? I am sick of your disrespect.
Look who's talking.
Grow
Okay,
up.
so Jim, did you have anything else to say?
If Kevin don't spend the money in this fund on equipment, does that mean he can bring back a couple part-time people?
In those departments.
Right. Because that's gonna be his money.
Well, I would like to point out that, and I think I sent an email to you all, that I turned back in $376,000 and $376,210 last year in funds that, in anticipation of needing equipment this year that we did not spend. Those rolled into accounts for those specific departments for equipment purchases. The money that is asked for is $110,000 less than what I turned in. I'm sorry. Just
Again, that's not my question. My question is, you know, I'd like to, again, let you have your cake and eat it too. Rent equipment, save some money, that way you have money to pave West Avenue. You already have a problem on Maple Street you're gonna need money for. Is that in the budget anywhere?
Well, here's what, I think we need to get back to this idea that our job is to be a check to the executive. So if we feel that we don't agree with the way they're going and we do control the purse strings, then I would suggest that you would vote no on this tonight. If you believe that the administration and Mr. Vaughn is doing what he needs to do, you trust his judgment, you want to go down that road, I suggest you vote yes. Because I'm about ready to call for the vote on, what was this, Resolution 1014. Renee?
I don't have a motion.
No,
I don't have
is there a second?
Yeah.
Second.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yeah.
Ms. Perkins,
No.
Mr. Walter.
Yes.
I do like this is how it's supposed to be, right? Democracy is messy. We are supposed to ask questions and challenge
And be respectful.
True. So that's something I guess we could all work on. But this kind of discussion, done in a respectful way, is healthy. At the end of the day, once the decision's made, we have one more reading on this. I guess we can continue to discuss it. I kind of basically feel we either have to trust them or find someone else. If we, I trust Mr. Vaughn, so that's why I voted yes, and I know he knows his department better than I could know. So I trust him on that until I can't trust him anymore. So
It's
that's
not
where
that I don't trust him.
Well, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to ask questions. And so in the end of the day, you get your one vote, just like the others on the committee, on the council. So next thing on the agenda is the second reading of Resolution 1114, selling some things on gov deals. Anything anybody has on that?
I make the motion to approve the second reading of 1114.
I'll second.
Mr. Kaiser,
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy,
Yes.
Mr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Perkins, yes, Mr. Walter.
Yes.
Okay.
Never mind. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. We're good.
New business. We may be to the point where we actually can start talking about this trespassing and criminal damaging. I think we all, so that is an actual resolution, right?
Yeah, it's just a business for the police department.
Okay. You all have that in front of you, I believe, and we're signing that resolution number.
1214.
1214. This is the, basically authorizes the police chief to sell a John Deere mower and another mower and a Grand, or a marquee vehicle.
Motion passed 1214.
Second.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Walter?
Yes.
Okay. Updating the codified ordinance. This was in your big envelope at your house. And, now correct me if I'm wrong, all those who can speak better to it than I can, but basically we have to bring our ordinances in line with the state of Ohio.
Right, yeah, whenever the legislature makes updates or amends any of the Ohio Revised Code, we're bound by the Constitution and in state law to update our codified ordinances accordingly.
So this is one of those things where, in the opinion of the solicitor and the administration, it would be needed as an emergency just because of the changes with the state, we have to get in line with them right away. Is there anything, how should we do this? Vote for the waive the 3 readings, emergency, then discuss anything? Are we okay with this? Do we need
Discuss it first if there's any
anything?
questions.
I move to waive 3 readings.
We're effectively bound to do this, right?
Yeah, we're required to do it, and you know, the reason it's an emergency is because we can't be charging people for violations of old law. We have to keep up to speed with the current law, so that would be a problem.
Do you motion?
Yes.
Is there a second? I didn't-
Sorry.
Oh, okay. Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Walter?
Yes.
It's 2-14 is the ordinance, just to let you guys know.
Before we do move on that, I just kind of read through it today, and what stood out for me is I just like to go on the record is point out that texting while driving is, we talked earlier about click it or ticket, and I kind of think this is getting to that level where we need to raise the awareness that the state of Ohio has now made it for texting while driving illegal.
It's a secondary offense, and it's not a primary offense at this time.
So you can't pull someone over for doing it, but if you find them, you can.
And an additional violation too, just like the seatbelt. It's a secondary offense.
Okay, so I just think that's a great thing that that's in there and it's on the books. Okay, so, anybody else have a speech about anything that stood out? Okay, no more speeches.
May pass as an emergency. We just waive the 3 readings.
Okay.
Yeah.
I move to pass resolution ordinance number 214 as an emergency.
Second.
Mr. Kaiser?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Walter?
Yes.
Okay, anything else from council that's not on the agenda that might have come up or you want to discuss a little bit tonight?
Yeah, there's something I'd like to talk about. Last Saturday at the baseball parade, we were standing up in front of the Historical Society, and it was a friend of mine and her husband, my age, and her mother, who's a senior citizen, and had their little twins, who were gonna be 2 in June. And we were bombarded with candy. I can't even describe how it was flown. Those kids were throwing as hard as they could. I got scratched, my lens got scratched, and the little one got hit in the face, she cried. Where we then proceeded to say, no candy, no candy. I even yelled at Nick, no candy. And they continued to pelt us viciously. And some of the kids were just, and there was no reason to throw to us. There was no little kids there with bags, nobody else around. They were throwing down into the water puddle. If you saw after the parade, the town was a disaster. So with that being said, I looked up, Dublin does have parade rules and regulations. They are not allowed to throw candy. They must hand it. I did some research throughout other cities throughout Ohio. There's 5 or 6 cities that have that same rule. And I think we need to adopt something like that before something seriously happens.
Well, the only thing I would offer as far as the handing, I think those are talking about parades in which you have pedestrian participants in the parade,
Mhm.
not vehicular. We don't want to invite kids to come running out to get handed candy from a moving vehicle.
Well, correct. But they're still running out there because the kids are just throwing it down. Kids are constantly running out there.
I'm assuming you've attended this parade in years past.
Oh, yeah.
And has this particular parade been different than others? Or has this been a constant complaint?
It's
of yours
been a
for
constant
years?
thing.
And is it in the way that they continue to throw it, or the fact that they just throw candy?
No, it's the way they throw it. They were also trying to see how hard they could throw it to get it to land. You know, on the Rumble Building, how it has that ledge that comes out, it's like a little patio type of thing, veranda.
I don't know.
So many kids were trying to see how much they could get up there.
Sounds to me like they just need supervision.
Well, again, we were standing there going, no candy, please, no candy. Nick saw me, and they would just pelt us anyhow, and the adults just looked at us.
My girls can't throw that far, so.
So what do you think? I mean, I don't want to be a downer on kids, but it was vicious.
I personally have mixed feelings. I think one of the reasons I live in Plain City is because it's quaint and it's small, and we still have things like that.
Correct.
That's nice, that's neat. We don't want to become so, not that we ever want to become cosmopolitan, but I don't want to lose some of that charm that we have. If it can be controlled in a responsible manner, I find that preferable than saying that we can't do those kinds of things or do that. That's how I feel. So I like the, somewhere in the middle approach.
And when they schedule a parade, they get a permit, don't they, Chief?
Yes, they do.
Okay, maybe there'll be a handout from the police department to the people applying for the permit, cautioning them as far as the distribution of candy, and for safety purposes.
Maybe they prefer not to throw it too far, not to try to throw it back in the crowd, but just
Well,
off
if
the
you could,
road.
if you could tell them just be considerate, that'd be great, but will they?
Well, and having, I've done the parade now, I don't know how many times I was driving, hopefully it wasn't any of my boys that they're gonna have trouble walking next practice because they'll be running ragged, but, typically, there is supposed to be supervision on the back. There should be parents on the back. There's always, I always have an assistant coach or 2 assistant coaches back there if I'm pulling it, and if I'm back there, I'm telling them, to knock it off if they get out of hand.
Part of the
So-
problem, like Paul, was this year it was basically hailing 2 seconds before we pulled off. So most of the parents, I think, abandoned the back of the trailers and left the kids
Right.
on their own. I was out there, hoodie and all.
There were parents, and I'll admit, even one parent just laughed at me. She thought it was funny that we were getting pelted.
I assume if the PCABA is told that in order to continue this, they need to make sure the kids are respectful, that should curtail the behavior. Because it is an important parade to them. They've done it for a long time, so hopefully that can address it. And if it doesn't, then perhaps we can talk about it next year. I don't know if that's sufficient for now.
Did you see the street after the parade? Did anybody see the street?
I did.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and this year I think was unusual due to the circumstances that, you had a ton of kids with a lot of candy that they're
No
used to
one
throwing out,
picking
and
up
nobody
wet
picked it
candy.
up. Because everybody basically abandoned the streets, and the gutters were flowing with water, so, that, if anything, it was a question as to whether we should have done the parade at all. But if you guys want, I'd be more than happy to send an email along to Jeremy and to the rest of the board for the PCABA and say, look, we're not happy with what happened at the parade. We need to make sure that this doesn't happen again, and there'll be additional information forthcoming regarding the next parade. And if we want to continue to do it, then we're going to have to, they'll have to do it more respectfully and more safely. It's probably not a bad idea to at least have some general guidelines to throw out. Again, I understand what you're saying, and I think you're right that we don't want to kind of give up what we're doing. We don't have to create an ordinance every single time there's something. I think common sense can rule the day, but I think, at some point there is a line that has to be drawn, and I think that's probably a fair comment. So give them the opportunity to get it under control in a firm way. Maybe a letter from the chief
parade's gonna be steam threshers, isn't it?
July 4th.
Yeah.
They throw candles here.
I think almost every parade has candy. So
Pick it up and throw it back at them.
Well, they'll be nice about it, I'll make sure of that.
Well, the next break is not this fall.
You guys-
No.
Right?
It's Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, and they don't have to throw anything.
I think it's definitely a teachable moment. It's an opportunity to teach the kids. Just because you can throw something really hard, doesn't mean you should. Anything else tonight? Leslie, are you okay with that before we move on? Are you okay
Yeah.
with just kind of a warning shot across the bow right now and just seeing how it goes down? All right.
How's your lens? Did you have to replace it?
Yeah.
Take a bag of water balloons with you next to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. And then another hit my head.
You did what, Chief?
Have my back. You're lucky. Fine.
So anything else from council or anything?
I'll get you your sleep.
Okay. Well, since no one has signed the guest speaker, I signed as a guest speaker, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All right. So we'll be back here in a couple weeks. Good night.